Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
Statistics are out, and a whopping 80% of relationships are unhappy. That means if you're in a relationship, whether you're a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife, separated, maybe even just going down to the friends, there is some discrepancy in our relationships that's going to be causing people to feel unhappy with their relationships that they're holding. Now, this is not to say that there is something wrong with you and or maybe even something wrong with them. This is something to do with the mindset of what relationships are today. We are living in a world where people think that they can do everything themselves, and rightfully so, they can. They don't necessarily need a friend, a partner, a person that they can lean on. Because in the reality of the scheme of things, right? Maybe someone is looking for affection. They can go to the club or whatever. They can get it for the night. Maybe someone is looking for someone to speak with. They speak with a therapist or a life coach. So the reason for having a relationship or maybe even going into marriage, the ideal would be to have a family, to start a family, because there is no institution better than marriage to raise a family. However, families are one of those things where people have given a different name, where I can say, you know what? Family could just be my friends or whatever. And people don't necessarily think that family is only blood. And of course, you're taking someone who has different blood and you're bringing them into your own mix, and then you're creating a family with them. In a sense, they're not necessarily blood, but it's the idea of what you're trying to create. You're trying to have children. Elon Musk had posted a couple months ago. He says that on average, we need 2.7 children to sustain the human population, and people are not having enough children. So people might be having zero, maybe one. Currently, I have two. My wife and I, we don't want any more. But if we have another one, we have well achieved the human potential of keeping us survived for the coming generations. Now, this is a personal preference in how many children you want, of course. But the idea is, why are people not having children? Why are people not starting relationships? We have to get down to what the human mind is. The human mind likes easy, it likes comfort. Relationships are hard, they're difficult, and they can be uncomfortable at times. There is this idea that, yeah, sure, you might want love and appreciation, but then at the same time, are you willing to do the things that you might not feel like doing in a relationship? Maybe cooking and cleaning. And of course, you can outsource these things, but do you want to spend time on the meaningful connections that you need to be creating and cultivating to last for just more than a moment? People are all gun ho about new relationships, the butterfly feelings that they have within them. But the moment all of those things fade, and then you're left with the reality, it's you and them alone. Now, of course, if you put some kids in the mix, you have them too, and maybe they feel like an obligation or maybe even a handcuff or an anchor for why you stay in a relationship. And of course, we can get down to the list of why people might be unsatisfied in the relationships, whether it be finances, appeal, different values. I mean, we can go down the list of why people might not be satisfied in the relationships. But I think we need to look at both sides of the coin. Well, what will make a relationship last? And that is going to lead us to today's article. Today, we're going to be talking about why most relationships fail and how to build one that lasts. Relationships are not simply built in one day. It's very similar to how you build a house or an empire or a business. As much as I will love things to be instant for you, these things take time, especially a relationship. Typically, when you're meeting someone or you're talking to somebody, it takes some time for you to get to know them. Of course, you ask silly things like, what's your favorite color? What type of animal do you like? Do you like a dog? Do you like cats? Do you like fish? Do you want a turtle? Do you want to travel the world? All of these things are essential, even though they might be meaningless to the wrong person. Because if I'm trying to build something with someone, I'm not only looking for their appeal at the moment, I'm looking at the future appeal too. Marriage is not until you don't feel like doing your part anymore. Marriage is until death do you part. So death is the only severance that what marriage can be. Now, of course, we can look at what are other plausible things that can constitute grounds for divorce. I know finances can be big, infidelity, adultery can be big. We can look at those things and we can maybe put those into brackets saying these are your non-negotiables. And if someone can't be on top of this, then of course they're not for you, right? You don't want to be around a person who's toxic. But then at the same time, did you not do your due diligence in the beginning of the relationship to make sure that your relationship is going to thrive? I know, right? It sounds crazy. Why are you the person to blame? Because you didn't want to do the work, because you were stricken, right? The butterflies feel good, but you need to understand that they're not everything. And so when we are looking at the longevity of a relationship, it's more than just, hey, I like you like me, let's make something happen. Let's have some babies. Our babies are going to be beautiful. And yes, right, you can make beautiful babies, but then at the same time, can you be beautiful parents? Can you be beautiful grandparents? Can you be beautiful souls in your communities? And I mean, we can go down the list of how your relationship and how your family can impact not only yourself, but the generations to come, and maybe even just the people around you. It could be that simple. But then we get into, what truly separates relationships from the ones that fail or falter. And it's going to be into four categories, essentially, right? Number one, communication. Two, trust. Three, shared vision, a vision just in general. And four, growth minded. Now, let's start to break down communication. I've talked about communication countless times on the podcast. And of course, you might have not listened to the episode because it might have been an older one. And I always like to kind of repeat the same mindsets on the podcast or just in episodes or in the blogs, even because I understand that it's not about doing it once, it's about repeating the process. For example, when I was learning music, I learned the C major scale very quickly, right? They're just all whole notes. It's very simple to learn the C major scale on the piano. However, if you want to learn it on the guitar, the saxophone, or the trumpet, you would have to figure out, well, where are all the notes? And of course, you can figure out where the notes are on the piano, but the piano is laid out pretty nicely. It's not really a puzzle. So it's easier for someone to learn music theory on a piano than another instrument. And so when I was learning music theory or learning the C major scale, it was something that I said, okay, I know the C major scale. I practice it. The C major scale is in my head, right? Anyone can recite the C major scale. Anyone can probably play the C major scale. Now, can we do it with efficiency? Can we do it with proper tempo? Can we do it with the right timbre? All of these things are important when it comes to music. I'm not going to just be, hitting C very hard and then very soft, going to D, and then I'm going to E and it's rushed and it's all off kilter. And we might say that's music, or we can say it's a mess. And what happens is many people, they just practice until they can understand it, not practice until they can never get it wrong. What would happen if in your relationship you couldn't get it wrong? That no matter what happened or what you did or what they did, at the end of the day is still love. This is a hard mindset to fathom in our world today, especially when things can be replaced so quickly. I talked about different mindsets and different guests on podcasts probably a couple weeks ago, if not months, where people will have different mindsets. I had a guest come on. He had a very different mindset, multiple family members, kids, and things like that. But his role as a father wasn't that, oh, I'm going to love my kids and love my wife. It was simply that I'm going to protect and I'm going to provide. And the way I protect is finances, not physical, right? Of course, maybe there was an aspect of physical that wasn't said in the interview, but the reality was money was his turning point. If I have money, then things can go well. I didn't ask about communication. I didn't ask about if they trust each other, right? Most of those things should be a given in a relationship, especially when you have had so many children above the average or what is recommended by Elon Musk, right? And I'm not saying Elon Musk is a scientist or anything. Three children is nice, but then you're outnumbered, right? If it's just you and your wife or you and your husband, you're outnumbered if you have three. Now, if you have a grandma or grandpa in the picture, or some aunts and uncles that can help you out, hey, have as many as you want. But when you are outnumbered, man, it could be tough. Now, you also have the option to wait until your children are a little bit older and put them in a different generation. So, for example, let's say your kid is 7 or something, and you decided to have another baby. Those 7-year olds, and maybe even you have one a bit older, are going to help take care of the baby for you. So you have basically a built-in nanny system, a built-in babysitter. Not saying that you should be using your kids for free childcare, but the reality is family can help family, and family should help family grow. All of this is to be said that if we're looking at communication, right, this has to be communicated. This has to be communicated before you even say I do. There are going to be conversations that you have to have at the beginning of the inception of the relationship, and then the beginning, and maybe in the middle, and then guess what? Toward the end too. All of these things are important. Like I said, in the beginning of the relationship, most of the things are just kind of trivial. Tell me your favorite types of movies and things like that, right? You're just trying to gauge an interest, gauge to see if, you could see a vision, which we're going to be getting into a little bit later down the road. But then when everything is said and done, communication, how much are you getting a week? You need at least 90 minutes. 90 minutes of meaningful communication. I've talked about this on the podcast. You need 90 minutes. What is 90 minutes, right? Well, 90 minutes are going to be 60 seconds separated into 90 minutes. But this is something that you don't have to get a timer for. This is this is something you have to get a feel for. This is something where you have to say, okay, I'm being smart about my use of time when I'm with my partner. For example, I've given this example before, such a good example. When you're in the car, let's say you're going grocery shopping together. Maybe you don't go grocery shopping together, right? But let's say you do. You go to go grocery shopping together. One of the rules that you should have in the car is that there's no cell phones in the car unless you're doing a road trip. So if you're going somewhere that's multiple hours away or something like this in different time zones or whatever, heck, feel free to sleep. Feel free to be on your phone or play your games or whatever you want to do, right? You're going someplace where hopefully you can have some more time for communication, not during. Uh, Here, just in town, 5, 10 minutes to the grocery store, then 5, 10 minutes back. That's already, 10 to 20 minutes of communication that I can have with my partner. This is something that you can do easily. What do you talk about? You can talk about anything. It has to just be meaningful. Talk about work. Talk about your friends or your family or school, or talk about the kids, whatever is on your mind. That is literally what it is. Whatever is on your mind because it's meaningful to you. I'm not going to just say, hey, tell me about your day if I don't really care about it. Maybe you don't even want to tell me about your day just because I initiated that conversation of trying to be a person who communicates doesn't mean anything to the individual. So you have to figure out if it means something to them, and then you can call it deep communication. So if they want to talk about something, maybe help them become more clear in how they do it. But other than that, just allow them to speak and be there and listen. That could be your deep communication. The same thing is going to be true for your children or for your coworkers or whatever. Communication, you have to be present. So you can't be on your phone. You can't be distracted. You can't be thinking about what you have to do, your to-do list or whatever it is. You have to be there and you have to be able to communicate. And not everyone is going to be the same when it comes to communication because some people are just not built to communicating. Think of public speaking. Some people hate public speaking. They're like, I don't want to be a public speaker. I don't want to do anything on stage. I just want to be in my cubicle and be left alone. But the same thing can be true in life. Maybe you come home and your cubicle's your home, your living room, your back cave, right? Your man cave, your woman cave, the kitchen, the dining room, whatever, right? Wherever your safe zone is. And typically people just go in their little spots. And even though they spend time with their lovers or whatever, and they're holding hands and maybe kissing and, maybe just watching a movie or just trying to figure out what movie to watch. There's so many options. So people will scroll for an hour to watch a 30-minute show. Is that deep, meaningful conversation trying to figure out what show to be distracted with? No, it's not. So our communication is backwards. Just because you're spending time with them, it doesn't mean it's time well spent. Then we look at trust. This one is a mindset. And trust is one of those things where you could be a person that says, if I'm betrayed or if trust is broken, it cannot be repaired. You could be a person that says, forgive and forget. You could be a person that is just overly, warm and they can trust anyone, even if they continually show them that, you know, they shouldn't be trusted. This is to say, who you are as a person. And this is no right nor wrong. However, you need to understand what type of person you are, right? This is a mindset. Because if you're a person that knows, for example, if my partner, let's say they got into a bunch of debt or something like that, right? I might feel as if, oh man, I can't trust them with finances. And one of the reasons why people are unhappy in marriage is because of finances, right? It's a major issue. And I might say, well, they're terrible with money and I don't want to be with them, right? Because they broke the trust. They didn't ask for help. They didn't communicate, all of these things, right? This could be a problem for me. But maybe I say, you know what? It's only money. We can make more money. We can figure things out. We can create a budget, right? We can do the work. And maybe down the road, they break it again and we can, pick up the pieces again and we can figure it out, right? That's the journey of life. But it's not for everyone. Some people, they just want everything, standard, logical, and maintained, right? In order. Not, oh my goodness, you're doing it again. I can't tell you how many couples come into, relationship coaching with me and they're like, hey, this person's over here buying Twinkies or sodas from a vending machine because I can see their debit card or whatever. It's almost astounding. Like, hey, like, why are you two arguing about $1 or $2, right? There has to be something bigger than just that, right? Now, if we have $1,000 expense because you bought a boat, $1,000 expense because you wanted to go on a trip with some friends or something like that, right? Now we're getting into the realm of, okay, let's figure out where our money is going because maybe the vision which we're going to be getting into is I want to buy a house with you, right? I want to, have a place where our children can come home to after college. This is all a mindset, right? So trust is going to be dependent on where your boundaries are. And for trust to occur and be there properly, you have to have healthy expectations. If you don't have healthy expectations, you're going to be thinking you can trust somebody when you never even had the conversation of what was going to be expected of them. For example, if my kid goes off to school and maybe they get an F, I'm not going to say you betrayed me by, tarnishing the family name, right? I never had that expectation with him or had that conversation with him. I didn't communicate. So the trust couldn't be broken because we didn't make a promise. However, we can look at the promise of marriage and how that is broken so easily. Trust is a byproduct of someone feeling comfortable. And if you feel uncomfortable, then disloyalty or betrayal can seep in at any moment. So this is not about always trying to make the other person happy or not doing anything that's going to make them upset, right? Their happiness is on them, right? You can trust in yourself to make sure that you're doing everything you can. And I talk about this idea is if you can be 100%, if you can do the best that you can, at least that is saying something. But if you are over here half assing so many things in life, no wonder why there's communication issues, and no wonder why there's trust issues, and no wonder why we get into step three, there's no shared vision. Many people, when they're going through that relationship process in the beginning, yes, they're talking about all these wonderful things they want to do. They want to travel, they want to explore, they want to start a family, and then maybe somewhere in the middle they get a promotion in their job. Something happens, medical, whatever, family. They become depressed, and now all of a sudden, right, the vision is a blur. Right, it's a far fetched idea. It's no longer viable, so they played safe. And most people, when they played safe, that's where unhappiness is. We talked about 80% of relationships are unhappy because they're not living the life that they thought that they would be living. Yeah, I would be upset if I said I'm going to the moon and I landed in my backyard. But maybe my imagination can trick me otherwise. And so most people, when it comes to relationship, they ignore the bad, they ignore the things that are not happening good in their life. They accept the crumbs, they accept the mundane. And this is not to say that you need to throw away your relationship. This is just to say that you need to work on your relationship. Because if you didn't have a shared vision that was created together, why are in the world are you even starting a relationship? Why are you even getting married? Going a step above that. The shared vision is something. Did you want to have kids? Are you able to have kids now? Maybe you waited too long. Maybe there's something going on with the fertility of one or the other. And maybe you're praying and you're, having quarrels and, there's nights of just unrest because you have this dream of a family, but yet it is so far from happening. And this is not to say that just because one of your visions are not coming true, it doesn't mean there's not an alternative path. We've talked about the idea of pivoting. Maybe one job or one role is not for you, but there are going to be options where you can be a family. It might not be exactly by blood, which we talked about in the beginning, but it can be of a mindset because I can adopt. I can say, you know what, I'm going to have a person I'm going to adopt or something like that. And maybe, down the road, I adopt if I want to have three children or something like that, I can adopt. But then again, this is a mindset. Why am I adopting? Is it because I want to help someone in need? Is it because I wanted to hit that stigma of I need three children? Is it because, maybe one of my children are acting up? So I'm gonna say I'm gonna get a new one. I mean, we can go down the list of why I would do something, but it needs to be shared. It can't just be mine alone. So it has to be a conversation. I have to communicate what's going on in my mind. And then we have to put things into perspective and see if it can become a reality for us. So the shared vision could be whatever you want it to be, the type of home you live in, the types of animals you have, what you do on a daily basis. The shared vision should be shared. The vision is going to be what you're looking at to say, whoa, we can get there. Then we look at our final step, and that's going to be growth mindset. Now, we talked about so many things that are growth minded in the sense of we need to have a growth mindset in order for this relationship to work out well. If you are a person that is having a hard time with being positive or just being optimistic, then you have to do the growth mindset work. Growth mindset is not everything. Growth mindset is an opportunity for you to make a choice because at the inception of who we are and who we can be, we have a choice to make. We can be someone who's a better version of ourselves, a better father, a better wife, a better husband, a better mom, a better brother, a better sister, aunt, uncle, a better coworker. We have the choice to be something different or to be something the same. Maybe if you're not satisfied with the person you are today, you choose to be someone different. And I encourage you to be different. Don't remain where you are because it is just, where you fell. This is to say that you can change, you can move. And that's the reality. And this is what happens when relationships fail. They feel as if they're stuck, they feel as if they're not moving. And sometimes, yes, relationships can get stale. Sometimes things can become so regimented where it feels like you're just living with a roommate. Sometimes it can feel like there's no horizon over the mountain. And yeah, sure, you can complain about the dark nights and all of the uphill battles, but I believe when it comes to a relationship, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And we talked about this so many times on the podcast where you might say, well, I want my relationship to be perfect. I want them to be perfect and I want to be perfect in the relationship. And yeah, sure, in a perfect world, everything can be perfect. But I believe that the parts in the relationship that really can test you and really allow you to appreciate that relationship even more are the moments where things are not exactly your ideal. Maybe it's not ideal finances. Maybe it's not ideal love or ideal communication or ideal visions and trusts. And maybe this ideal idea that, both people are working 100% of the time. We are human at the end of the day. People are going to have their ups and downs. People are going to have good days and bad days. But it doesn't mean that today can't be a day that you try. And so in this article, we talk about this idea that relationships can fail, but they can also last. And we talk about so many great things in this article where you can start at the beginning or the inception, wherever you are, because you can have 50 years in marriage and read this article and you can learn something. You can be a person that's just starting your journey of trying to find out your perfect match or your perfect person that you can be with, your soulmate. These keys and these wisdom bits are going to be something that are going to truly help your relationship thrive. Because at the end of the day, when all is said and done, can you say you truly tried in your relationship? Can you say that you truly gave it your all? And I understand some people, they do, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Some people, they take the easy road. Some people, they say, if it's broke, why bother fixing it? This is all a mindset. And so the relationships that you hold or the relationships that you would like to have are not only dependent on the other person, they're dependent on you. What is your mindset telling you about your relationships? If you need help or if you need support, head over to revenconcepts.com. Get yourself a consultation. You could bring your partner, you could bring your person. You could just have a conversation to figure out, where are you today? That's all it takes. Just figuring out where you are today. And if it's not exactly where you want to be, then just make some small changes maybe, and you're going to start to see that your relationship can start to steer in the right direction.